Everybody got it? All right, I'll go on. So I want to remind everybody what our purpose is for this facility committee. And the purpose of the Othello School Board Facilities Advisory Committee will provide the board with options relating to both short and long-term facility needs. The duties of this committee will be the following. Number one, develop a 5-year facilities plan on the industrial vision of the Othello School District. Number two, prioritize this plan from the most immediate needs to the future needs. 3, seek input from experts inside and outside the community to determine the fiscal impact of the needs that have been determined. And 4, provide the board with at least 2 options that include the fiscal impact and the timeline for each option. That doesn't mean that we're limited to 2 only options. We can have multiple, but we need to at least try to provide 2 solid options to the board. And we're not to prioritize them, not give them like, oh, this is our favorite, this is that. Give them 2 options at the minimal so that they can make their decision. And I had attached the norms PDF, if you guys will pull that up. It's just to kind of give us, how many of you guys have been on a committee before? Anybody been on one? So I figured it would be helpful for us to just have some basic norms so we understand, we're all here and we're all here voluntary, no one's getting paid, right? You getting paid? No, okay. No. So the idea is we want to be able to get out here on time, so we're going to try to stick, to our agenda every day. The first one on the norms is be present. If you're not here, you can't be heard. And if you're here, it's not just present like be a zombie in a physical space. As Julian will know in my class, I need you to be active, participate, which is the second part. So if you're here, you can feel free to say something, participate. We will have some time where we'll be working in groups together to try to come up with some solutions that we have for our problems. The third one, and I think this one's based off my intent, being on a school board in the past, presume positive intent. And thank you. That's probably the key here, guys, is that we're all here to make Othello School District great. I'm not going off the president's thing there. I'm just saying we're here to make it better. And we should understand that all of us, even if we're coming in here and yelling and screaming at each other, and I got this idea and you're stupid for that, we're all trying to make it a better place. And so let's not try to name call. Let's not be politicians in here. All right, we're above them and we can show them. So limit distractions. I would encourage you, please don't have your phone out or be talking or having minions distracting you. So, get the phone ringer off, make sure it's not buzzing so I don't have to hear Crazy Train ringing in the middle of a meeting. I love the song, but it's kind of hard. Foster and collaborate in your culture. So basically, guys, we have to come together and make these plans. It's not here for just me. This isn't my board to run. I have no dog in this fight. The facilities committee really on DOHS, it's not concerning my school as much, so I don't have too much of a dog in the fight. So I want us to all, be collaborative, try to work together. Odds are, if you deal with your kids, there's did you eat your full meal? Okay, you can have a cookie. Did you eat half your meal? Okay, you can have half a cookie kind of thing. So we got to collaborate and be together, and then be mindful of your communications. Remember that any emails you send to each other, dealing with this committee, especially anything to like Dr. Hurst or any teacher in here, is that it is subject to possible, what is the word I'm thinking here? Public records. And that means that it can be pulled up and viewed. Anybody can make those requests. So if you're making emails and you're sending an email to me, understand that the public can see that if they make the request. Is there any questions, gripes, moans, complaints about the norms? Anything anybody would like to see on there? No? Okay. So that's kind of the piece that I had in here. In general, we'll try to rule this board where if we don't understand something, we'll kind of follow Robert's rule of order. And I will try to put something together, maybe like a little document or something that you can read to take home at some point so you understand what the basics are of that book. It's a pretty thin, small book. If you got some time, research into it. But that's what we'll try to fall back on if we can't come together as a facility. And there was a lot of questions and information requested at our last meeting we're kind of just now starting this, and so we don't have a lot of, oh, we're going to talk and do it. So I figured the best thing we could do was try to get experts. So we luckily had the questions written down because I wasn't the chairman at the time, so I wasn't writing your questions down. But luckily we had them down, and I have ways that we can address some of the questions and some of the information provided. So I'd like to turn it over to the district to give us some of that information tonight. So a lot of it's going to be presentations tonight to kind of give us a warm up and know what we're going to be getting into, what our needs are, what the vision is, what CTE looks like, and all that. Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to remove item C from the agenda.
Which is item C?
The new items, the instructional vision and support.
Okay.
No, not, no, item C. There you go, yeah, the new items.
So we can go this route if we want to have people make motions out of random to do it. If you wanted them removed, the best, especially that, is like, you can give me a heads up prior to the meeting, and we can discuss it a little bit. But if you want to make a motion, how that would work then is that essentially someone would have to second it, and then we would all have to vote and unanimously take it off the agenda.
I'll second it.
Okay. So now it's open for discussion. Is there a reason why you want this off the agenda?
It doesn't adhere to the committee policy.
What is the committee policy?
Prioritize the plan for the most immediate needs and to the future needs.
Mhm.
Seek input from experts inside and outside the community to determine the fiscal impact of the needs that have been determined.
Okay, so how would a document called future facility needs, for example, where it has the want and need, how would that not go to that?
I point out number one, develop a 5-year facilities plan based on the instructional vision of the Excel School District. We can't do number one if we don't know what the vision is. So by removing it, we're actually breaking, I feel that we're not adhering to the norms or the purpose as defined in the very first one.
But
Mr. Chairperson, can I just a clarification for order?
Yeah.
We're on YouTube Live, so we're going to need everyone to just use the mics and pass the mics around.
my point is, how does the instructional vision have anything to do with an actual building, the need for housing?
I'm representing Jennifer Garza because she's not here tonight, so I know what the preschool presentation is. And it does involve telling how we've grown and how we've expanded and what that's going to look like, what we would like to have in our vision or need in the future if we have 400 children enrolled. So it gives an overview. I only know that piece of it for myself, what it does. So I feel like it gives some knowledge of what is happening in our preschool, what we need to continue to do, and the space. Some of the things I even referred to last time as myself, but now it's actually documented from district information.
So you're basically stating that the need and or wants instructionally determines a building. Could you elaborate exactly how that could be?
I went home, I will say last week, or whatever it was, and personally, I thought a lot about it, and this was even not just relation to my emphasis on preschool. I went back thinking about when I was in my kindergarten classroom, and also in how we keep determining that we're housing children, and I know that that's how it's termed, officially housing children. You can house children anywhere. I've been in buildings where we've turned libraries into classrooms and we've done all these things. But I also went home thinking, in my kindergarten room, what was so difficult for me, and this isn't even like thinking what we needed having an 8th grade science room, is could we visually look at the instructional point of changing our mindset that my kids in kindergarten went to a science room with a science teacher and me, not my prep. I went too. And the materials were there and set out. And we even went for 6 weeks for a science thing that was effective and instructional and awesome. And I didn't have 16 kindergartners around me while I was trying to put everything away while I was trying to get math out or something else. So to me, I do see that point of it's being how you instruction that we could, looking at those things that we need, or an art room even. And I go to art and the art supplies and the instruction are there that I can take my child.
But that's not determining an actual building. That is what is utilized within said building.
But I think you need to look at, do we need more art rooms? Do we need more science rooms? Do we need more those types? Like at all grade levels.
Well, that's purely aesthetics and the supply, but I'm talking about an actual formidable plan to hit our number one need, which is housing.
Sure.
What goes in that is a different committee or beyond our scope.
Mr. Chairman. So, unless I'm wrong, those 4 priorities, that is what the board laid out. That is the scope of our work. To amend those is out of order because the board determines the scope of this work. So if they say that number 1 is to develop a 5-year facility plan based on the instructional vision of the Othello School District, I don't believe that we have been empowered to change those 4 priorities as determined by the school board, which is ultimately the one that set this committee up. So, that's my 2 cents.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we lay items.
Okay, well, okay. We have one motion on, so how a motion works is.
I know how motion works, so now let's vote. We've had discussion.
I got it. And remember, guys, let's go back to the norms right there. Let's assume positive intent. I'm not here to already start straggling and arguing. You guys had 2 weeks to come at me and say stuff if you had something. All right? I mean, like, I'm not here to try to silence you or silence them.
We don't need to explain it.
I get it, sir, but I'm running this. If you would like to be chairman, then you should have ran for chairman. I'm trying to just let everybody talk, not bus roll people, all right? We need to be able to communicate with each other, let everybody have a chance to talk, and then we can go to vote. I'm not trying to bus roll you, though, but as of right now, I'm the chairman. I'm just trying to run it. There was information that was asked last committee. This information pertains to the questions that were asked by this board last 2 weeks ago. So I was asked to get that information. I dug on my own time. It's not like I was paid to sit here and try to find people that were experts in this. I brought these people here so that you could listen to them. I don't feel that they're going to throw their agenda. We all still get to speak on it. I'm trying to give you guys options and people to talk. I'm not trying to bus roll and just have no information here. So with that said, does anybody want to elaborate, have their voice real quick before we put this? I see that this aligns directly to our vision, these agenda items. The CTE course, computer grid, career pathway. I don't see how we can not make a decision based off of not knowing what our needs are. Well, we need to know what our needs are to be able to understand what space we need, like, and then what our education vision is and what we're trying to do. And input from teachers on what they need, if they need classroom space for it, is important. Like if a science teacher says, I need 6 labs instead of 4, well, we need to understand, why do you need 6 labs instead of 4? Because I know essentially this committee is a space committee. It's to establish how much space we need.
Is the question, we're here to propose a building, or are we here to propose, if I'm a Spanish teacher, I need certain requirements to teach my vision of teaching a foreign language? Is she here to promote her preschool because she wants a certain thing in her preschool building? Is the science teacher saying, I'm sorry you gave me a new building called the science wing at the high school, but it's no longer feasible. It doesn't fit my needs. So my question is, are we building a building? We do need input of what we want in the building. But are we gonna open it up to each academic subject, whether it be teaching sixth grade science or math or in your building, you have needs obviously in your building and you're gonna support your building. I think we're here to build a building. We'd have to have some input. I'm not saying we don't need input.
Yeah.
But we're here to say, we're willing to propose to the community a plan that's gonna say in 5 years, this is where we're going, or in 2 years, this is where we wanna be. And in 2 years, if we wanna spend $82 million, or $62 million, or $12, whatever amount we're gonna spend, I think we need a base.
Well, essentially, yes, we're just trying to figure out our space. But sometimes having input from people like a preschool can kind of give us an idea of what a teacher's going through. So that way we can have a good idea of what it's like to be in a teacher's shoes for those spaces. It's not necessarily like, oh, okay, this guy sixth grade science teacher needs this much room. We have kind of we had an expert come in that said, this is how much space you should have per room. Or this is how much the gym should be. This is how much food storage you need. And every square foot. We're basically a committee to figure out the square footage overall before, not sixth grade needs. And we have like kind of a step-by-step, like what was presented, and we can kind of, our job is to trim
If
off
we're
the-
here,
We're
here to determine square footage.
Exactly. Square footage is square footage, no matter what you put in it.
I understand, but we need to know what we need so we know how much square footage we need. Does
We
that make sense?
need over 900 seats,
Okay.
long-term. We need
But we also
something
need
that will
gyms.
satisfy.
We also need gyms. We also need cafeteria space. We also need this, and we have to be able to have experts that go, okay, this is where the population is going to grow in 5 years. We need those kind of people to give us the information. I don't know why we're against information. I'm trying to-
Because the point of this committee is square footage. We need to provide square footage for the almost 20% overcapacity that we are. We need to do it smartly, and we need to do it now. Time is of the essence.
So would you
I
say
would
getting
like
information would be smartly?
not when it
that's a
comes
word?
to what goes into that square footage.
Okay.
Because
But
we got to get the square footage first. What goes in it, how it goes in it, however it's rearranged, or whatever the case might be.
We're not going to determine how this square footage is going to be used. All right. We need to figure out how to get to our number. We need to figure out how to get to a number. And you have to do that through what our needs are. Not just physical space, but there's even it gets down to janitor closets. I mean, I hate to say it, but there's a lot of stuff that has to go into it other than just school seats. If we increase this many students, then we have to have this much more dryers, or we have to have this much more space for janitorials. Does that make sense? Yeah. So,
But
Mr. Chairperson.
that
yes.
May I add to the conversation? So just to clarify and just add to what David Spencer was saying, just going back to the original conversation from the board when they established their committee, and you read the 4 bullet points, and I just want to reiterate what David Spencer shared. And this was read also by Rob Simmons at the last meeting. Number 1, develop a 5-year facilities plan based on the instructional vision of the Othello School District. So if you remember, at the first meeting, I was allowed time just to share about the instructional vision, and specifically, I shared certain elements, and I shared that there was STEAM that was coming into the district for all of our students. I shared that there were opportunities for project-based learning for all of our students. We talked about maker spaces that was coming into the district for all of our students, and we talked about pathways as well. Another piece we talked about was kindergarten readiness. I made a very clear distinction what the instructional vision was, and just to reiterate to everyone, the instructional vision is what's happening inside the classroom with teaching and learning. So once again, That's why I shared the information at the first facilities meeting. The reason why it was on the agenda again and were approved by the chairperson was to again give a more in-depth presentation to the committee members so they can really understand the elements of the instructional vision. So as you look at number 1 and it says, based on the instructional vision of Othello School District, that's precisely why it's on there. So you can hear a little bit more about what is the instructional vision as it was described by me at our first facility meeting. So all the elements you see in that new items, that is part of the instructional vision. Thank you, Mr. Chairperson.
And I just tried to add as many documents as I could to this. I figured the more information, the better. And that's kind of why I approved to put it on. I'm not sitting here trying to bus rule somebody. I feel that you need to have several options and input from it. This is our first meeting. I don't know what we're going to talk about if we don't know anything about it or what our needs are. It makes zero sense if we don't know what we are. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. If you have a room that's 2,408 square feet, how does the shape of a square room versus a triangle room affect how the teacher in Spanish class passes out the handouts or the students get the books out of their desks or out of their backpacks or out of their lockers? Okay? How the teacher teaches is more about the teacher. I think we all know that because Mr. Bosch proved that. Now, what we need, we have 4 separate issues in this school district. 1, lack of space. 2, grade allotment, meaning where we're putting them and how those grades are interacting. Money, we are out of money. We have reached our maximum credit limit that the state allows almost. And we don't have time to spend a year debating this and then another 2 years building something, because by then the problem will be twice as bad as it is now. What we need to do is make a quick design and a quick building. How the teachers use it, it's like Ashton said in the last meeting, we have to stick within our budget, which is only about $27 million. Then we have to have a building, just like Scootney's been multitasked several times in the last 20 years. It must be universally adaptable so that, we got spare space in there for now in a new school. It can be utilized for something. In 10 years, when we gain another 200 students, that space can be easily adjusted to handle another grade or maybe a computer lab or a library or whatever is required. I've drawn up a plan for a school, and I don't know if any of you know, but I've built quite a few schools, okay? I've drawn up a plan that houses 904 students. Even without state matching funds, we can build it. It solves our transportation issue. It solves the staggered start issue. It solves our space issue. And it allows us to use the $2.3 million that's about to be lost because we've screwed around for 2 years and not used it to eliminate or to reduce class size in K through 3.
Can we have a little bit more positive intent? Like I can read it like we screwed around, we do, but we do work hard, we do try here. It's not like we're screwing around with your tax dollars. I mean, yeah, we got a pay raise this year, but I mean.
So anyway.
But I mean, I get where you're going, and how about this? Instead of having a thing where we're sitting here cutting each other's throats and battling each other, which is why I did not want to be chairman of this, how about this? She has my phone number. I know that for a fact. Why? Because I have a text. There's this thing that it's open communication, and you can go, hey, I'd like to present to the board my plan for a school because I've built schools. I think I'd be an expert on building it. And do you think I'm going to shut you down that way? No, you know why? Because that's information. So if you would like to do this, instead of projecting your agenda, this is the board's agenda. So if we want to hear it, I'm happy to put you on the agenda and have you talk as an expert. I'm happy to. But not like this where you got to interrupt and we got to sit here and debate for 6 hours on your vision versus the board. This is a board, not just two people going back and forth. So if you want to have it, you got a vice chairman right there. You can get it on the thing, and I'm happy to put you on there. But what I'm trying to do right now is stick to this agenda, get through our information, and if you want to be on the next agenda, I'm happy to put you on it. I'm not that hard to work with. I was free and open. Did anybody try to communicate with me this week? Who emailed me today?
Me.
Did I answer you?
Yes, you did.
How fast?
Well, before my prep period.
Did I answer your questions?
Yep.
All right, there we go.
It's not about you. Don't take it personally.
No, I get it, but it is, all of us have time, and if you want to be heard, I'm willing to let you be heard. But please do it in a diplomatic way, not just filibustering and try to disrupt this whole thing into chaos. This isn't going anywhere with us. I'm trying to project, I'm trying to get some positive. I don't see how this interferes with what you're talking about. If we understand this and we go, hey, here's where my building plan can go with your vision, wouldn't that be awesome? You can be like, oh, I see preschool needs this. Check out this awesome design I got. Wouldn't that be kind of cool? So if we give you what the teachers need and you're a designer and you can know what we're dealing with and what our needs are and what we're currently going with as teachers, and you can go, hey, I can accommodate.
Shut down a year and a half ago.
But I'm not that. I'm willing to let you be heard. And I haven't been given a chance to even let you be heard yet. Remember, guys, let's try to assume that we're going for positive intent. But I'm not going to have this thing running around like a tornado constantly.
I'd like to call the question.
Yeah.
So let's vote. Motion's on the table.
No, it's already been seconds. So. All those in favor of taking this off the agenda, raise your hand and say aye. Raise your hand and say aye if you wish to have it taken off the agenda. One. Just leave it up there. 1, 2. Anybody else? All those opposed and leave it on the agenda, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All right, it has it, so we'll keep it on the agenda. Thank you. All right, so enrollment projections and facilities. We have a few people that were kind enough to come and give you guys some presentations tonight that I worked with, and Dr. Hurst worked to give me the connections because obviously I didn't have their contact info. Greatly appreciate Amy and you guys are all coming out here tonight to give us this information, and whoever would like to go first can feel free.
And Mr. Chairperson, just in the interest of time, what we're going to do is just going to cover a few documents. Some of these documents have been here just for your information, such as the cost analysis, that's just your information. The bond resolution, that's just the resolution that went in February 2018. I think we're all aware of that. There's a document in there that actually explains that so everyone could look at that document. We do have one document that we want to go over. We're going to ask our Executive Director of Business to discuss the unhoused student data. We did say that we'll come back to this committee and just provide a more in-depth explanation of the unhoused student data. And then we're going to have our project manager, Greg Fultz. He's going to come up and he's going to talk about the inventory of site buildings. If you remember from the last meeting, there was some incorrect information that just needed to be updated around portables. He's just going to clarify that information. And again, the other information is there for your knowledge. It was in there last time, and it's old information. So we'll turn it over to our Executive Director of Business and Finance to explain the unhoused student data.
And so we thank you, Talia, for putting that up on the screen. I apologize, folks, I'm a little congested tonight, but the information that's in front of you is actually from OSPI. And I just wanted to go through, this is the summary document, and there's a number of sheets that feed into this, but basically what this is ascertaining is exactly what in OSPI's, for their calculations based on statute and so forth, where we actually are in regards to overhoused or underhoused calculations. if you can see, if you notice in the first section, the red number right up front, the 19,843 square foot, that is actually, through OSPI's calculation, is telling us that we're actually overhoused from K-8 through the K-8 calculations. So basically what that's telling us is based on their calculations, we actually have more square footage than they deem as fundable, if you will, from a state assistance providing. So from the elementary side, the K-8, there's no state assistance available at this point in time for new construction. The next step on that is the modernization, and there's a small amount of square footage that's identified as available for modernization, and that is basically square footage that would be available for new in lieu of, if you would, modernization. 7,500 square feet is what's deemed as allowable for modernization purposes. The same concept follows through for the 912. You can see that from the 912, as was noted earlier, there is a significant amount of square footage there that's deemed as allowable under-housed category, which does mean that there is available state assistance available for that. But those would be for a facility that is focused on a 9 through 12 instructional program. And then again, there's some square footage that are also identified there through their calculations that come through for the modernization dollars as well. I just wanted to point out on that CCA, those are the construction, it's actually construction cost allowance, and this was a number that was questioned last time as well. And basically what that is saying, that number is actually arrived at through legislative allocation and appropriation on an annual basis. The OSPI website needs to be updated according to their expert. That number is actually $225 at this point in time. No expectation that that is to cover all construction costs, and they recognize that. I think that was one of the points that was brought up last week, was that it's the costs are well in excess of $300 per square foot. But at this point in time, the construction cost allowance that's available for any allowable projects is $225. The percentage, the 84% that you're seeing there, is actually the funding assistance percentage. That's actually that's the state's calculation that provides, if you will, how do I say, an equalization of assessed valuation and of a community's ability to generate tax dollars. So basically what that's saying is that for every tax dollar that's available, the state assistance is providing 84% of it for Othello. Those calculations throughout the state range anywhere from 20 to 100%, Othello being one of the higher ends for state assistance on eligible projects. The calculations, the capacity is based on a square footage by grade band. It's the allowable square footage for capacity purposes for K through 5 is 90 square feet per pupil, 117 for K through 8, and 130 for high school students. When you are I guess that's where I'll leave that. That's basically just a quick summary of what you're seeing there. If there's any questions specifically, I'd be glad to entertain those.
So that first table up there under project says any K-8 new square footage. What would change if it was just, let's say, a K-5?
Actually, it wouldn't.
Okay.
In regards to that, because those grade bands are they calculate it based on a K-6 for 90 square foot per pupil, and 7th, 8th is actually calculated at 117. So those grade bands aren't going to affect that. When they do change that up for a specific site, though, Sandy, it will adjust that, but it's got to fall within that full grade band. So for the overall fiscal period, from K-8, we are underhoused at this point.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lisa. At this time, we'll turn it over to Greg Folks.
This work? Okay. Go ahead and pull it up, yeah. The inventory. So on this, the ICOS report that that was brought to me earlier, that it didn't have the changes from when we moved portables from Hiawatha to McFarland, or the addition of the leased portable at McFarland, or the addition of the 2 portables at Wahitas. So those have since been moved within ICOS and added. If you scroll down to Wahitas Elementary, it's almost at the bottom. Right there. 2 portables have been added, and it doesn't show square footage, or it has zeros and everything, and that's because we just inputted it. And the director of the system, they just updated their whole system, and they haven't figured out how or why we can't input the numbers. So they're working with me on to get these numbers still inputted. And then the grading's not there because they won't let us grade it till the next fiscal year, since it was just inputted. Does anybody have any questions?
And if not, Mr. Chairperson, if we, oh, go ahead.
The score, the BCA score, the grading, the percentage on the side? Yeah. That we, within ICOST, every year we go in and we regrade different aspects of the building on a 1 to 5 scale. And the system records that so that we can keep track, or the state can keep track of how we feel our buildings measure up, whether the foundation's cracking or the windows going bad, or we grade our building on its condition. And then every 6th year, we have to pay a consultant to come in and grade our buildings. And then state will use that information compared to the way we feel our buildings grade. And then they're just trying to get a good inventory and grade of the buildings long-term. ICOS has just started 4 or 5 years ago. So it's just a new system that they've started to kind of keep track of how do the buildings look, how kind of condition are they in.
And if it's okay with you, Mr. Chairperson, can we go on to item C, new items? As the district has those items as well.
Would anybody like any of the other documents? Would anybody like any of the other documents gone over real quick before we move on to C? If there's any document that you would like to pull up real quick. Does anybody have a question on? 'Cause I don't want to move on if there's a question. Going once? Going twice? All right, yeah. Feel free to go on to item C.
Absolutely. So we have Paula Lang here. She's going to provide a more detailed description of what's happening with preschool, which is our Birth to 5 program. Then we'll turn it over to David Spencer. He'll talk about some of the other elements of the instructional vision, which I have shared around makerspaces, STEAM, and project-based learning. And then we'll turn it over to Amy Paris, who will talk about another element of our instructional vision, which includes pathways. And all of that leads to future facility needs around the instructional vision.
As I mentioned earlier, I am here representing Jennifer Garza. She would be here to do it, but she's out at an early childhood ed conference. If you look quickly at the first one, it's just the ideal in the vision is a year-round full-day pre-kindergarten for Othello students. When we say preschool, we consider that age 4 by August 31st. Early interventions, one of the key claims to success at school is the amount of nature of preschool experience that a child has before starting school. A structured intense includes about 15 children and at least 13 hours a week. Play programs, play is with a purpose, it's their learning. Learning about peer relations, learning how to learn from peers, facing and meeting challenges, consequences, satisfaction, problem solving, imagination, self-expression, mathematics, creativity, science, self-esteem, continuity, and performance, and all of those do require space and a place for them to go, but it's what we're seeing there. Next slide. In conjunction with the vision, this is how we've moved in the district. Starting at 2016, we had 80 students in pre-K, 3 2-hour sessions. 2017-18, we had 120 students, 6 3-hour sessions. We also had last summer, we served 70 students for 29 days. They were targeted as kids that had no preschool experience or had low scores at the end of that. 2018-19, right now, we currently have 160 students and 8 3-hour sessions and 1 full-day session and 1 full certified teacher. The next slide, please. Yeah.
Is the 3-hour session includes how many kids?
There's 18 kids in a session. And if they come in the morning, they're served breakfast. If they come in at lunch, they're served lunch. This year. We enrolled all students that applied by September 4th. Currently, we have 8 students on a waiting list. They'll be enrolling next week when Jennifer returns. Due to the fact that we were able to expand and add more slots, we did not have to have any criteria such as income assessment, scoring siblings, etc. We were able to honor all of them. That's why you'll see a range of scores. If you're looking at other data for the starting, we have a score of a 2 all the way to an 83. The average starting point this year is 29 points. We had several families that wanted the all-day, but due to funding and space, we only have the one full-day class this year. There's just there, it says we pulled birth dates, took the oldest kids, because we thought process was that they had the largest gap right now if they were that much older and still had the lowest scores. And that was just the criteria at this point. Next slide, please. Birth to 5 programs, we have parent education. 2017 started Learn Academy, held 2 sessions, 7-week courses. We will do that again this year. And Ready for Kindergarten has held fall, winter, and spring sessions, and that's been in place for long term. I couldn't tell you exactly how long. Next one. This is the gap analysis. This relates to our kids. This was the preschoolers last year, and it's our current kindergarten kids this year. But you see how the growth happened in our abilities with having the preschool and the enrolled. And obviously it can be there for you to look at later. Next slide, please. This is our current reality. Our regular preschool is located in one location. We're at the McFarland Middle School in one wing. Our SPED preschool is still located at the Early Childhood Ed Center. Pros of the one location, and this is, our team consistently agrees with this. Teachers are collaborating, problem solving together throughout the day. Jennifer's on site and able to provide feedback and support daily. She's able to supervise as needed. Central location for parents, busing, dining services for only one location. Our current con is our SPED is at the Early Childhood Ed Center, so we don't have as many opportunities for inclusion. Our therapists will be traveling back and forth for speech and whatever. Basically, looking at a future facility, we would love to have preschool as one building. That's what's there. Next slide, please. These are the needs based on, this is stuff Jennifer provided to me, looking at our highest end of 400 students. If you were looking at full day for all, you'd look at 23 classrooms with 18 students, 3 SPED rooms for classes and therapy. If you looked at a combination, you'd look at full and half day, you'd have 11 classrooms with 18 students for full day, 6 classrooms with 18 teachers for half day, 36 students per room. Obviously, we need gym space for our indoor recess, PE, purposeful play, physical movement, playground. She gave me, I'm not sure where the 75 square foot, I'm sure that comes from some document. Cafeteria, breakfast, lunch, office space, workroom, it's probably. Office space, workroom, staff room. Honestly, storage is an issue. Kinder and Learn both have, we're trying to build kits for these. We also have materials that then are given to the parents. There physically needs to be a storage for these things. We'd ultimately love some type of parent education center type thing built in that. Student kitchen areas for cooking and science things. Yes, it does. Your space is needing to be what you need for your instruction. I just don't know how to go past it that way. Next slide, please. Parent education, these would obviously be within that, but you use 10 classrooms for Ready for Kinder when we offer English and Spanish. We use 2 classrooms for Learn when we do it. We have to have space for children for childcare at that time, and as I said before, the storage for resources. Next slide, please. This is where we are. We had 90% of the OSD preschool students were deemed ready for kindergarten on the district's pre-assessment by scoring at least 50 to 100 points. That's approximately 112 students. Average was starting 19 and ending was 83. As we were filled to capacity last year due to space and staffing, our children tried as hard to get them in some type of program, which was ECAP, Inspire, Co-op, and other private programs. Because our goal is they'll have something before they hit kindergarten. That's it.
Thank you for that.
So I'll be talking about the instructional vision, some of the components that go inside of that. Talia, it's the facilities, that one. Which one? Facilities Committee 10.1.18. So Dr. Hurst had mentioned STEAM. I didn't actually include STEAM into this, but I wanted to ask, is everyone familiar with what STEAM is? Do you know what the acronym stands for? Is anyone unclear on that? Okay. Are you? Okay. Okay. So STEAM stands for science, technology, engineering, arts, mathematics. Mathematics, that's it, not STEAM. So STEAM. And it's not the same as, oh, my kid's in a science class, so they're getting STEAM. No, it's a different approach to the instruction in an integrated style. And it really dovetails in, which is why I didn't necessarily single it out in this presentation, and some of the things that you're going to see me talk about here in just a second. So if we could go to the second slide there, Talia, please. Thank you. The first one I want to talk about is design thinking. Design thinking is really a way of approaching problems that focuses on understanding the end user, challenging assumptions, redefining problems in order to find creative and alternate solutions that may not be readily apparent at first glance. This is being utilized more and more by industry giants, really, such as John Deere, IBM, Apple. NASA uses this, as well as being used in many universities across the country. Two of the biggest names are MIT and Stanford. John Deere, the most famous application of this with that company is the GPS plotting system they put in the tractors that keeps the rows straight. That came out of a design thinking model with inside of that company as they were responding to the needs that the farmers presented to them. So just thought that was interesting. If you go to the next slide, please, Talia. Makerspaces. Makerspaces, they're a collaborative space, a workspace inside of a school. Our district houses them in the library, but they can be in separate public-private facilities for making, learning, exploring, and sharing that uses high-tech as well as no-tech tools. So they could be done on computer. It could just be done. A kid sits down with paper and pencil and designs something, so it's not tied necessarily to technology. As I said, we've been using these in our elementary libraries for the last couple of years. The middle school's gotten involved with it too. If you have a chance and you're at one of the sites during the day, I'd highly recommend stopping into the library to see what's going on. You'll see some pretty cool things that our youngest kindergarten students are doing in those spaces. If we could scroll down to project-based learning. So project-based learning is a teaching method in which students gain knowledge and skills by working for an extended period of time to investigate and respond to an authentic, engaging, and complex question, problem, or challenge. Some things that are involved in that are elements. Students, in order to do these projects, have to have key knowledge and understanding. So when we talk about problem-based learning or project-based learning, don't think in your mind, oh, that replaces core instruction. It's adds on to and enriches core instruction. We still have to have, they can't think about a problem if they don't have anything with which to think. So they have to have the components that they need to do that. The problems have to be challenging, or it could be a question, but it also has to be applicable in real world, like something that they can tangibly see, or a problem that's local, or hey, there was a earthquake and tsunami this weekend in Indonesia. Let's design an early warning system. So something that is relevant to the kids, that it may be contemporary, may not. But it's sustained inquiry. They work on this for a while. It's got to be authentic. The kids have to feel like it's important to them, and that's where that authenticity comes in. It also has a ton of student voice and choice, because as the teacher, I'm not going to direct where I want you to go. I'm going to give you some guidelines, but you are free to explore within inside of that to get to your solution. It also has a large portion of reflection, critique, and revision, and it culminates with a public presentation. So if we can go to the next slide.
Can I add on that real quick?
Yeah, sure.
So if any of you would like to see a demonstration of that at DOHS, we're currently doing one of these. We're doing a community project. So if you would like to see what that looks like and kind of the space that's needed, it does bring up an issue with space because we're doing ours in the like our gym cafeteria now workshop room. I mean, so it does matter when you're trying to get into this project-based learning how it's going to look. But DOHS will be doing that. If you wish to stop by, you can feel free to email me and come check it out.
And if we could scroll to the next slide, let's, words, reading these things and me defining them for you and talking about them a little bit can only take you so far. It barely scratches the surface. This is something you really have to see. So as a way to maybe whet your appetite to go in to check out what Desert Oasis is doing, we have a couple of videos we'd like to show you. The first one is our tiny houses project. We didn't do it, another school did it, but it's pretty amazing.
For this project, you are going to design a home, you're going to plan a home, you're going to build a home.
This project, the Tiny House Project, is where students are designing tiny houses.
Remember, when you're gonna build this, we have to think about who's living in the house.
There was a boom in tiny homes, just the idea of living in one, just because in the city, the population is growing and there's more people, less room, and maybe a tiny house is more cost efficient, more green.
Would you like to have your own room? Would you like to have your own space?
The driving question was, how can we, as a design team, design a house for our clients, taking into consideration budget and location and personal preferences? The entry event was Minecraft. So they used Minecraft to build just a house that they would build for their family.
This is inside the house. This is where the sofa, and over here is where I sleep.
They're able to use their creativity. They're able to just be free and just to build without anybody giving them parameters.
Back to our project and this driving question. What do we need to know to answer this question?
Like, say they have family that's gonna come live with them, they have to pick about that and have a guest room.
The Minecraft building sparked like, how many rooms do we build? So they came up with their need to knows.
Any other need to knows you'd like to add?
You have to imagine how much it costs.
Well, we have to know like how many kids there are, or how big the family is, and what are those questions that you think you should ask the client? And they're like, yeah. And so we come back to the driving question, we came back to the need to knows, and we came back to their entry event, just so that they can get some questions that are appropriate for the project to their clients.
What is the minimum square footage you want?
400.
You want a second story?
Yes, second story would be good. Okay, yeah.
I think it's important for them to know that there's a real client because it gives the project more authenticity.
Would you like to have a garden outside your house?
Yes. When they form a relationship with the client, then they start to care about what the client thinks.
This is the final product. This is what the construction documents look like. But not too different from that concept drawing, right? We have the bedrooms up here, master bedroom in the corner.
So I asked an expert to come and present to the students, and he was actually a structural engineer.
You're gonna see elevations, just kind of look at what kind of information is on there. How do you tell a wall is a wall? You can see you put two lines parallel to one another.
And we talked about making blueprints and what does that look like, or having a layout.
Okay, it even has stairs that you
These are called elevations.
I think they were really excited about seeing the blueprints because it was just real things that they can hold, they can touch, and they can see, and they know that engineers touched it, and engineers made this, and this is what we're going to do.
All right, we're gonna move into our next rotation. On this side, we have front row and RAS kids for listening to reading and answering comprehension questions.
So as we plan the project, we think about the standards that we're going to be using. In this project, we're using opinion writing or reading of informational text, and we integrate that into like a daily rotation of in English language arts.
So this is an article from NASA, and it's called Tiny House Fun. If you have something you want to highlight, like you want to get back to, or a word that you really don't understand and you want to learn more about that, you can highlight some words.
So on that day, I had a group, and we were looking at informational reading. And then another group, they were listening to a book
itself, and that's just books that they're interested in, so they're practicing reading independently. Write your name at the top. For math rotations, we call it math with the teacher, math with technology, and math with a partner. The house size that your client wanted. And then I'm working with the group, and we're really looking at area and perimeter and the difference between area and perimeter. Okay, so can you tell me what the square units are here? Another activity that we did with math was the Cheez-Its math. When they looked at square footage, we said that each Cheez-Its was 1 square inch, and they used that kind of information to do square footage within a house. It was just kind of a connection for them. To help them refine their designs of their homes, students went through a feedback protocol.
I turned the bathtub from here to here because I know that you can't get to the toilet if it's like that. There's the bathroom with the shower.
They were paired up with another group, and they presented their models, they presented their blueprints and their layout, and they talked about what was in the house and who their client was, just to get some feedback from their peers.
Our client is Miss Peña. Her age is 39. Her budget is $40,000.
Within the fishbowl protocol, what we did was, me and another teacher, we sat in front of a presenting group, and everyone else looked around us, just like a fishbowl where they're not to talk, they're not to say anything, they're just really listening and seeing the interaction between the presenter and the guest.
I like how you do go into the living room, but maybe push the bedroom in the back. And then, so then that way she has more privacy. And
The purpose of looking at that interaction between the audience and the presenter is so you can think about questions, you can think about behavior within the meeting, and so they can use that as a model for when they go back to their groups.
This is the laundry area, and then here's the pantry to store all the clothes. Right here we have a little office.
We practice different ways to present to their clients. We talk about eye contact, we talk about confidence, we talk about postures, we talk about volume of your voice.
Hello, my name is America. Hello, my name is Christopher. And the title of our project is Tiny Houses. Our driving question of this project is, given a budget, how can we as a design team plan a home for a family?
The last day of this journey is for them to really present their work to their clients. And they were so excited.
Did you have a hard time building the house?
Kind of, yeah. We had to redo some of the walls so that they were the exact measurement. There's the master bedroom. The middle is a kitchen. Here's a room.
They shared their blueprints, they shared their layout, they shared their budget, and they shared their opinion paragraphs that they wrote so that they can try to persuade their client to purchase their home.
So as you could, helps if I wait for it to start. So as you could see on that video, there was a lot of the elements that we had talked about, the design thinking, the working with the client, but look at all the rich content that they built into that around the math and the ELA. And that's where we're wanting to go with our, how many of you don't want your students in a room like that? So that when we talk about instructional vision, that's what we're striving to do. When Dr. Hurst mentions things like we want to rewrite the way education is done in Othello, that's exactly what he's talking about, and just the benefit that it'll have on your kids. And not only was it just content, think about all the soft skills, the interpersonal, making eye contact, doing a presentation to an adult as a third grader, you know, and trying to please a client, all of those things that will benefit them later on. And I know that example was, the group that we work with is the Buck Institute, and that's an example of what they call the gold standard in PBL. And that particular video was not anywhere near here, but there is a school in our region that is doing project-based learning. And if we could click on the River Point Academy, this is right out of Spokane. The Meade School District has a STEM PBL school that they do up there.
You know, this question of what is River Point Academy, it's been hard for us to answer. A project-based STEAM school that uses design thinking. And that's a lot of acronyms and sort of educational speak maybe to describe it. But really, if you want to know the truth of what's behind this, is that we love kids up. It comes from this sort of ethic of care that we have here, and then nothing works without that.
So you haven't figured it out yet, that's all right. Okay, I just checking in.
It's a Montessori thing, a follow the child. I mean, we have these things that we do with kids, and ultimately it's their responsibility to start building, well, what am I passionate about? And John and Regan, how can you help me with this passion that I have? And then that's how we kind of build the day around that. You're going to generate a couple of these how might we questions on sticky notes.
What if we did like personalized, like merchandise? But what if you had cubicles, like personalized, like office?
Start out with skill incubators, they're called. It's really us sort of giving them projects to do, but those things are just tools for kids to learn how to use, and eventually they are going to choose to use the tool that's appropriate for the project that they want to work on. They just don't come here. We just don't say, oh, go do something interesting. You just can't learn that way. This creativity only occurs because of the structure that we spent so long building, and it's time consuming to build that structure as well. It's sort of when somebody says, you make that look easy, I'm like, well, thanks, right? Because anything that you make look easy there's a lot of hard work that goes into it.
The interdisciplinary learning is extremely important here. You know, we don't have bills. We don't have our content separated, and that's why having these wide open spaces where kids can navigate from one to the area makes sense. Because out in the real world, like the problems that we're tackling, they're not separated by content. So to be able to have access to any of these spaces and the tools at any moment for their work is extremely important for what we do here.
It's more freeing. You have so many different opportunities. You can go around the school. You can try out everything else that everyone else is doing. You're not just put in this box and you have to stay in this box. I want to learn and experience new things, and I want to be able to go out into the 21st century and get a job well and do things that make me happy.
The first graduating class day was terrifying for us because, you know, they had not had a textbook in 2 years. A boy that was in aerospace engineering, so this is all textbook the first 2 years. And he comes back and he goes, well, I had my first test. We're like, oh God, you know, and he goes, what was it on? Oh, textbook stuff. We're like, okay. And I go, how'd you do it? He goes, oh, I got the highest grade in the class. I'm like, well, how'd you do that? He goes, well, I just kind of figured it out. Right? And that's what we teach here, is that I'm just going to figure it out. We really are teaching kids how to learn, I guess. I mean, that's really the big thing.
Part of the reason I wanted to show those two videos are you see two very different uses of space in those videos. One took place in a traditional classroom, and that last one we watched is anything but a traditional classroom. It was a giant open room. So when we talk about understanding what it is we want to do with instruction, having an influence on what our buildings look like, that's exactly what I'm talking about. So what is all of this? Well, really, it's a new way to approach educating our kids and to give them all the future they deserve. Now, that's the end of the official one. This next one is 100% editorial that I wrote. It's not indicative of what the district believes. So this is my opinion. In all honesty, what we just saw, if I was like king for a day and could do anything I wanted with this committee, that's exactly how this committee would operate. We would be using a design thinking and project-based learning model to design what we want our schools to look like. So, end of editorial.
Mr. Chairman, can I say something?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, sorry. So I was fortunate enough to go to the PBL this summer with our teachers, and one of the upper grades was talking about doing a community garden because they saw the need for food and So talking about bringing in some farmers to talk about what they look for in soil and what kind of bugs and what we could grow and what would be good in our area. And so that was one of the projects for the upper grades. Well, then when we started talking as a whole building, second grade does nutrition. And so then they were talking about partnering and, oh, could our kids partner together to talk about growing? And then second grade could talk about making a meal. And, oh, where do we make a meal? Because we don't have ovens and those things in our school. And so there's blossoming ideas, but we don't necessarily always have the correct space to do it.
And I just wanted to add my 2 cents as an English teacher. Don't think this is just science teachers that think this is a great idea. English teachers think this is a great idea. I spent last Monday at a conference of English teachers who teach seniors, specifically college-bound seniors, and we were meeting with college professors to ask, like, what do you see that our students really need? And what he said really at the end of the day is, I need your students to be able to think. Once you get to college, you're not following a formula. They need to be able to think. And so as an English teacher, that's what I'm trying to do for my students. And clearly that's what project-based learning is trying to do for all of our students. So it's not just the science department or the ag department that thinks that this is a great idea. The humanities departments also think this is a great idea.
Go long. Gotcha.
So just, I love that, but I know that budget makes it so we're not gonna build all new schools so we all can have this right away and things. At this one school that's doing it currently, do they have regular classroom settings as well, or do they do this all day? I mean, how's that work too?
Yeah, that's Meade School District. So they have 2 comprehensive high schools, Mount Spokane High School and Meade High School, 2 junior highs, I think 18 elementaries. And then that which they all encompass or incorporate some elements of PBL. That school was specifically designed as a STEAM PBL school. So it's a school. No, it's not an alternative school. It's a school of choice. So think of like Delta High School down in the Tri-Cities. That's going to be what is equivalent to River Point Academy. I just couldn't find a video from Delta down in Tri-Cities. So did that answer your question?
So they do have regular classrooms as well as that, or this
No.
just one particular school is this way only?
That's a campus.
Okay.
So those kids are there all day for all of their coursework.
How are they chosen to?
They apply.
So would we
It's
be
just like Delta and Tri-Cities. They apply to go there.
So in our vision, as part of our vision for Dr. Hurst, would that be to build a building like that?
I will say that I've seen a multitude of examples. So in one community, we saw a school that was a typical school, and this is High Tech High, not necessarily in Washington area, but when you look at the school, it looks like our schools. They just use the spaces a little bit differently and more creatively. And they also have more open spaces as well. So it is possible to design a school where it has the regular classrooms, but just being a little creative in how we design extra spaces or open spaces for the students. So when you think about maker spaces or design thinking, you're just thinking about, okay, how can I create a school that has more open spaces but still has the classrooms? So it's certainly possible and doable.
And it's kind of like ours. We kind of had to turn our gym into that. You know, it's figuring out a way that if we did do that and we broke down for a week, how can we make this happen if we want to see it? If we don't want to just be in the normal classroom for a week, and we want to cross-curricular, collaboration is the key there. Is that we don't always get to know what the math department's doing, the science department's doing when you're in a big building, but if they're able to come together, it does help quite a bit. And I've seen it pretty successful. Spokane Valley High School is a great example of it as well. They're off of Argonne out there in Spokane Valley.
So does state funding care how we?
So does state funding care how we put that money square footage wise, open space, classroom, or what?
I think at the very end, if the chairperson permits the opportunity to make recommendations for future agenda items, I would like to make a recommendation of someone who can actually come in and answer those questions. We have some experts in mind that we want to bring to the committee just to listen to. So if appropriate at the end, I can make a recommendation.
So what's your question?
Does the state recognize how we use that money? Open space, classroom versus, you know, like that was in Spokane? I'd be curious if Spokane got state funding for that school.
Yeah, and I'd be happy to dive in.
Right.
And I think, and see, that's what I wanted. That's kind of what I wanted you guys to be able to. I wanted you guys to be able to talk about it, and that way I can get your questions for the next committee, so I can bring these kind of people here, because that's a really good question right there. Yes.
Fraser. My name is Eleanor Brodahl. I think a few people may know who I am. I came before the school board. I can't even remember how many years ago. Sharon Trudy was with me. Betty Haynes, 12 years. Because I work and I can look out at my place of employment at Delta. I've been to Delta School. But you got to look at who paid. PNNL. They are all funded by big dollars in the Tri-Cities. And usually, you know, they're funding them to go to school. To have that, it's expensive. I've offered to have people come down, because I've been in there, and to have them look at, but it is big dollars to have it. You know, and Delta is right, Pasco. We didn't need to go to Spokane. We could just go down to Delta School and look at that. And those kids do apply, and it is, and some of them are lottery. So it's interesting. It's an interesting school. But I came before our school board just because at that point we didn't have STEM. In fact, when I came before the school board, they all looked at me and didn't know what it was. Had no clue. So it is spendy.
One of the ways, because yes, you are right. Sometimes it can cost like money, and you got to look for donations and stuff. A lot of project-based learning as well is that you can figure out ways to create a monetary like gain in your school. And Spokane Valley High School is a really great example of that. Is that there wasn't a ton of money there, but there was functioning businesses on campus. Like we had computer programming. They built websites for actual like law firms. And then we had a coffee place in the school that the kids ran, and it was a real business, and it made money. You know, and we had a greenhouse, which then projected it. So it is expensive, and then that's why the project-based learning, it's to try to help solve those solutions. Well, we want the best for it, right? We want what our kids want. We want that hands-on, but you're right. You know, how the heck do we fund that? That's kind of where those kids can step in and figure out the solutions for that, at least from what I've seen on it. But I appreciate the input.
Mr. Chairman, can I say something? I think one of the greatest challenges presented to us is coming up with an idea that we don't know anything about. We grew up in very traditional schools. All of us, I'm pretty sure, grew up in a very traditional setting of schooling. And that's not the way school is looked at anymore. We have different needs right now for our children, and the ideas that are being presented in an instructional vision is what will meet the needs of those kids. And so the challenge for us as traditional people is coming up with something non-traditional to meet the needs of those kids. And I've got kids in the school system. I want everything I saw for them because I know the advantage it gives them, right? So now I can't, as an individual, accept that money is not an option. Like, I'm willing to think outside the box, and I'm willing to get a little bit creative. And I'm sure there are other people in this committee that are willing to do the same thing. It's just going to require a little bit of patience and some time as we work through some of these solutions to give kids what they need.
Ready? I'm next. Okay. So I'm Amy Paris, and that's a great segue to my work. The district created a new job last year, going on a year and a half ago, called Director of School to Career. And the reason I applied for it was because all of my years as a counselor in this school district, I recognized the need for more hands-on and ways to create little future global citizens. And I would not sleep at night because I didn't have time to do what we needed to do. Sorry. And so this job is very specifically related to thinking about what we need to do for our students after high school. So one of the very first things we did was create this pathway wheel. We know from research, from talking to kids, you guys know this just by being humans, that the more we introduce students, hopefully at a very young age, but especially by middle school and high school, to not only what they like and what they think their future might hold, like what kind of a house do you want, what kind of a car do you want, and think like that. But what are their abilities? What are they good at, and how do we parlay that into something they enjoy in the future? So if students take 2, 3, 4 courses in a pathway, in a direction, they're much more likely to picture themselves in that career and take the steps that it takes to get there. So in our district, I feel like we, for years, have done a pretty good job at getting our kids to college, meaning we give them good financial aid training, and we help them with applications to schools. We get them on campus as much as we can, but we haven't done as good of a job for them to think about career pathways, like certifications after high school, or getting them to realize that companies like Evergreen and John Deere, if you're just a good employee, meaning that you show up, you have a work ethic, and you're a thinker, they will take you at the age of 18, train you, pay you, and eventually you'll work somewhere else in the country or even in this world based on no debt that you had after your 4-year degree. And we have such a rich community for these things. So this particular wheel was created from Washington State, has 16 career clusters that they've identified. And in a small school, we decided to group them together into five pathways. And we always want our kids to know that no matter where your interests lie, there are career pathways in college fields that are going to require a degree of some sort, and there's career pathways that you can launch into right after high school. But everybody needs some post-secondary training. So our goal is to get kids to recognize that early enough to not miss the boat or have to figure that out the hard way. So that's the basis behind our wheel here. It's only about a year old. We use it when we guide kids in their career-taking patterns. We're finding new ways to get this out in front of students all the time, including in our elementary schools. So I'm pretty excited about that. If you'll click on the completer grid. In CTE, which is Career and Technical Education, this language now is probably more familiar to our traditional teachers and those of us who went to school in maybe the 80s and 90s. But we are bridging the gap, okay, and the 60s, Mr. Patitucci. What we're doing is bridging old school and new school kind of stuff. So I'm so proud of, in specific, my CTE department. I have around 15 teachers, both in middle school and high school, who have basically chosen to give their lives to this. They did teacher training around this, or they trained for some content area in college and then went back and realized, wait, I want to be a CTE teacher, because they've been doing project-based learning and all this hands-on stuff since the dawn of time. So this isn't new. Our CTE department kind of chuckles like, really? Now they're just figuring it out, right? So it's good work, but what it's doing is making us really think through. So I just put 2 examples in here. The business department, for example, they have one of the pathways, the business pathway. And what they did then within their business teachers, and they're eligible to teach all different things, but we want to know what the students are interested in, what the global community looks like, where are the job openings, where are the openings in Othello? And we match that kind of data with courses that we need to offer. gone are the days of, ooh, it'd be super fun to teach this class, and it's just a random, who knows what kind of a class, and then it just fizzles into into cyberspace. We're very intentional now about what we're offering our students. And we now say, okay, what pathway is that going to fit in? So you're a business teacher, and maybe you're a student that's interested in going into business of some sort, but I'm also interested in agriculture. So we identify a career track, first of all, and these are all just examples. The possibilities are endless. But if you're a farm manager, that's the direction you think you're going. We can offer you at least 4 courses, or we want to be able to, in every single pathway. Some of which are going to be inside the business department, and some are in other CTE classes or even in other parts of our school. But our guidance needs to be around showing students what courses they can take, at least touch that pathway once in your school year, right? Like as a sophomore, what are you going to take? In the STEM or STEAM pathway as a computer programmer, these are the courses we suggest for you. And the reason that they're color-coded is because we're always growing. We always need to have a 3 to 5 year plan in front of us. And I want everybody to know, like, we had 10 new courses this year just in the CTE department that were all research-based. We're not going to allow courses or spend any time and energy on stuff that doesn't have a career field that has a need in our future. So engineering is something that is just exploding right now, but we don't have a computer science course currently. But that is a huge need, so our goal is to introduce that in the 1920 school year. If we'll click on family and consumer science real quick. This is another one that just has huge ramifications. It's in, oh, sorry, not that one. It's in the completer course grid, but it was a different tab, I guess. At the bottom. Oh, okay. Well, we have a similar thing like in family and consumer. We have it in every CT department. We know that elderly care is a shortage, not only in our community, but on global level. So we have a teacher who is fired up about getting a human development course in the curriculum, and that happened this year. Now, next year, she's going to explore turning that into like a geriatrics course where the kids leave with certifications to be able to go over to Coventry or Avalon and get a job at the age of 18 or 19 over, maybe other people because they have some training. So, okay, now go ahead and click on the other one. In order to do that, and the reason I'm showing you all this, and I'd love to have you spend some time looking at these and giving us input. CTE, side note, they have advisory committees for every single one of these programs. And so we're constantly talking to people that are out in the field to be able to tell us, why would you have that course? Or here's the facilities that you need. So everything is guided by what's really going on in the world. If you want to scroll down to the bottom. So I'm the one who put wants and needs on there because, of course, we're going to make this stuff happen whether we have a little tiny classroom because we have passionate teachers who know what's best for kids. And when the kids are bugging you, especially in high school, I wish we had this. I wish we had a criminal justice course. We heard that last year for months. So what do? We banged on the door of the police chief and our sheriff, and now we have a course. And they teach it every 7th period, every single day, because they care, we saw the need, and the kids love it. So that's the beauty of having the flexibility to make this kind of thing happen. But at the very bottom there, in my STEM course, Family and Consumer Science, Professional Medical Careers is a course that we want to have here in the next 2 years. Well, in order to do that, because we've already researched it, I need to have a space that can hold a hospital bed that's wired for a simulated ER board to really teach the kids how things work in the real world. Possibly toilet training, lifting, sink access for geriatrics, so that our kids can get certifications around those things. I wanted to focus on construction about halfway up the page. We currently have a construction course. The kids build small wooden projects, and we try to simulate real world experience as much as we can. But are you kidding me? Without talking to any of these guys, what we would like is a place to store, build tiny houses. That's huge right now. Those tiny house things that you saw with those third graders could parlay into actually building them in the secondary schools and then auctioning them, donating them to charities, selling them. And then it just self-sufficient, keeps itself going financially. We are a huge trucking industry. We don't have an auto shop at the high school. And to me, that's about the silliest thing. Othello's known for that, and we don't have an auto shop or any way for our kids to really study diesel mechanics. So what do? They go work with their uncle and get good hands-on experience. But I would sure like to complement that with industry standards and certifications within our schools. So an auto shop would be amazing. We responded to that need this year by introducing a mechanics class. So we went to WSU, found small engines that we could purchase, and kids lay them out in the shop, and then they have to go put them away. So we're making it work. I certainly don't want the idea out there that without this stuff, we're not going to give your kids a dang good education. But these are the things we think about, and to be able to really make this happen in the right way to create our little global citizens of the future, you really do have to consider space beforehand. Questions? Okay.
That concludes our presentations, Mr. Chairperson.
Okay, so just to kind of wrap up before we stop here real quick, guys. If you really want something on this agenda, if you want to be heard, if you want a soapbox, this isn't their committee. This isn't their committee. This is our committee, okay? So I wasn't trying to get snarly and snappy at people and get in an argument there. But also at the same time, we all have jobs. I'm not getting paid to be here. I didn't even want, but we have what's on the agenda. If you want something on the agenda, if you want to have a presentation, it's not like I'm not open to that. And we're going to need that kind of expertise, especially, if you already understand how to build schools, that's going to be great. So if you want it, you can feel free to get a hold of me. I'm happy to figure out a way that we can put you on the agenda so your voice can be heard. I'm not about silencing anyone on here. And if anybody has any questions that they would like me to investigate so I can try to get some specialists, more people in here so we can have questions answered so we can start to create a game plan. Because essentially I know you guys are like, well, when are we going to get to it? And we were kind of jumping the gun there, but it's good intentions, right? It wasn't that it wasn't, oh, hey, I do it. No, I want that kind of energy. Just let's try to have it in a everybody love everybody community, all right? I'm not here to listen to them. I'm not here to listen to them. I'm here to listen to all of you here. Okay, no one's my boss here, and I'm not going to get any facility money at my school, so I have no dog in this. DOHS is not getting those funds, so don't feel like, oh, he's pushing it because he's pro-project-based learning. My school's not getting that, so. Well, I mean, if the school, I guess I can just go with what was on the bond last time.
Mr. Chairperson, are you asking for recommendations for future agenda items?
Yeah, yes. So what I'm gonna do is, can we have a thing where I will approve board minutes at the beginning of the thing, so that way we can stay on an agenda and go with it. And if you want on the agenda, just let me know. I wouldn't turn it down. Some of you emailed me. I'm right back on it. I'm not trying to bus roll you. Just let me know. I'm happy to put you on or try to figure out, hey, we really want to get out of here at 7:30, but hey, on this third meeting, we're actually going to be discussing plans. Do you want to be an expert on that one? Does that make sense? So I won't try to silence you. And I'm doing the best I can with no experience doing this.
I know we talked about, Bertie had asked before about visiting our current sites. Is that something we are looking at doing?
If you want. I mean, I'm sure.
I did, and I said I would do it on my own personal time, but just even after listening tonight, I just really think it would, for me visually, especially during school day, so I'm there to observe what's going on and the needs, in these educations, so we can see exactly, like you were talking about, what's the automotive look like? What's that classroom look like? Do the students have enough room to be working at? What's our preschool? So yeah, I mean, if that's something that we can do, but I mean, I don't know if people are available during the day though.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I'm a little slow here. So I actually visited a school this week because I was very curious to see what, what a school looks like that we currently have that's been remodeled, what's working, what's not working, and things. It was super interesting. It was very fascinating to go, wow, okay, ELL is in a closet and they need much bigger space because how many kids in Othello are only Spanish speaking? It's not working for them. There was lots of things you can learn doing that, so I don't know if that's something we can push to do, but I would suggest it was very helpful to see, okay, this one little thing in the portables that they didn't do, that they should have done, that would have cost very little, that I probably could have YouTubed and done, they chose not to do, and it takes janitor time every night to do. That's ridiculous. So there was lots of little things. I think things that if we have time to do it together, great. If not, doing it on your own time, it was very educational. I plan to go to all the schools in Othello.
I'm gonna speak on that real quick. It'd be really good to be able to. I'm over here, but yeah, I come to hide. I showed up late, but it's a good idea to go look at all the schools so we can take a look. But also to look at all the wasted space. We have a lot of wasted space in the schools right now that aren't being used, that are being used as storages. Take it from somebody who took 10 years out of their life to clean them. I know what's in those schools. I know the rooms that aren't being used or they're being mismanaged. And yes, we need bigger classrooms and we need a lot, but we also need to use the space that we have now.
So that's something that we can definitely do. We can certainly arrange tours. I was just talking with Amy Paris, and between Amy and myself and Talia, we'll put something together and send it out to the committee so you can be part of the tour and you can go around to the school sites and see.
Okay.
So if you'd like, so I guess maybe just get a hold of you to set up the community, because I'm going to be kind of teaching during the day, so it's hard for me to run it. But yes, how about we set up something where you can give a tour through the school system, and if you would like to, we can send a blast out email. And
I'm wondering if it's appropriate for them to go to you, Mr. Chairman, since you're the chairperson.
Yeah.
And that way we just keep it through you, and then you can forward it to us.
All right, so that'll work. Email, I will create an email, basically like an invite to all of you, and if you wish to go, you can message me, yes, I would like to attend, and then I will send out when would you guys like to have this possibly done by? I can have a minion backpack, yeah. Because some of the teachers don't need it, but I mean, when would be?
Couldn't we just keep like having these meetings at different schools? And then maybe as we're there and we have our meeting, then we could just be at the school and look at it either beforehand or afterhand. I mean, I'm pretty sure everybody has a big enough library that we could have this meeting in the library, hopefully. I don't know the technical support or whatever, but it'd be nice to be able to have a meeting, go to the meeting there either beforehand or afterwards and walk through the school.
Yeah,
I kind of have a guy here with every key.
Yeah, my only thing would be just if we have to like stream it, I think, because we agreed to do video, if our technology would be able to do it in all those facilities.
And I would say also, Mr. Chairperson, that's not a bad idea, it's a good idea, but I think at the last meeting, we all went around and we had times that would work for all of us. So I think if the point is to visit the schools during the school day, we would really have to take a poll of everyone else, especially those who are not here, because I think we said 6 p.m. on every other Monday.
6 p.m. every other Monday. It's the first and the third Monday of every month.
Or we could try setting it up to see if we could do it, one day during the day for a meeting, if not. But just even if we didn't see the school being run, at least we would see the space and everything else.
I think it's a great idea, and if there's maybe a way we could do our little business here real quick, and then everybody let's all go to Wajitas real quick or something. I don't know how to make that look.
If you need me to do, I'll put us on YouTube and walk around. It'd just be better to have the meeting at the school, do everything we do, and then be able to walk around.
just a thought, that's something that ends up happening. I know we also, I think this is what's happening. Everybody, there's a representative from every school there. As we meet, there could, the people that are, I don't know who's involved into schools. I'm sure there's some teachers that are and some that aren't. Would it be, maybe they host and they can be there, and the ideas and the thoughts that they're bringing to the person that's representing them here, maybe, not to take up too much time, but they could be part of that process to kind of let us see their passion for what it is that they would like and want, and then we can break it down to what is really needed.
Does that sound like a good idea to everybody? Should we throw it up for vote? Yeah? Do I hear a second? Do I have a second? I got a second over there. Do I got a third? No, okay. All right, all those in favor of, I guess, are we having the meeting? Just so, because we're having the meeting at that school.
Can we?
What was the motion exactly? My motion was that if we were going to decide to have the meetings there, to include whatever people or committee that is at those schools that want to show us what their needs or wants are based on each individual school. I think they're all different, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how to say that, but I'm piggybacking his idea.
I'm good with that.
So I guess maybe I will clarify my motion. My motion is that we conduct a series of meetings at individual.
Give her the mic.
My
Thank you.
motion is that we conduct a series of meetings at individual schools, each meeting to be hosted by the committee representative from that school with the express intent of talking about the facility needs for that school.
Thank you. You teach civics there? Second that. All right.
I agree. The only thing I'd like to say from a teacher's point is, like, the classroom is different when kids are in there versus like you standing in there. So like if you stand in there and you think there's a lot of space, then you put 27 kids in that classroom. There's not a lot of space.
Well, technically speaking, we could put 27 people in there and act like we're kids and we're just a little bit bigger, and that'd help us out.
Okay, one more comment. Just having done a tour, right? Mine was immediately after school. Yes, the students were gone. However, I got to speak to a lot of different teachers because they were still doing their things. Lots of different opinions coming from teachers that were the same level of grade they're teaching and teachers that were in different levels. It kind of depends on how long they're there and if they're new there. Things. So it was nice to speak to some different teachers in different areas that way. I know we can't expect all the teachers to be there doing that, but it is, like she said, it is different. So
Yeah, and if you want to bring, I think what we could do is that whoever's hosting it could bring any teachers that are willing to volunteer and kind of help donate and give their time on it. Plus, we can kind of, the more people, the more we can show them how crowded, right? Yeah. All right.
Question. We have a timeline on this committee, and we have 7 schools, and if you're going to commit yourself to 7 meetings, and every meeting is the second Monday of the month, I don't think you're going to get done in the year 2018. So it's nice to see that all these buildings are crowded, which we already know. So I don't want to be negative, because the last time, we know this building was constructed pretty well because that door handled an outburst. So
I've seen older buildings take.
If I could add to what Mr. Patitucci was saying as well, that will add actually 3.5 months to our timeline as we're thinking about getting back to the board and looking at what our purpose is, and our purpose is to develop some strategies or some plans to share with the board. And I think they wanted us to present that to them by December timeframe, and then go through the entire process. So just thinking about the timeline, it pushes us out 3.5 months if we're going to commit to these meetings every 2 weeks for 7 schools. So that's just something to think about And I will say that I'm certainly not opposed to the tours, and I think that the tours are certainly wonderful for everyone to go and visit the school sites, but to extend it out to 3 months is something, 3.5 months, we have to certainly consider that as part of our task and our purpose.
Right. I don't know if, yeah. My name is Gretchen Durpo. I'm a teacher, and I know that I would love to have people come in and see the classroom and work. I mean, I'm at the middle school, and it is a pretty new building, but you know, you can certainly come in and see how it's working. I do have an art room, so it's, you know, project-based learning every day, so you can come in and see how messy and chaotic it is. So I know most teachers, I think, would be okay with you, you know, coming in and seeing their needs and seeing their students and everything in motion. I mean, I hate to speak for everybody, but I think they're pretty willing for that kind of reason. So.
Mr. Chairman, we do have a motion and a second on the floor. We need to resolve that.
Well, maybe we should vote. I would be happy to withdraw my motion in the sense that this is not it's not a time that's really pragmatically workable. And maybe a potential alternative would be to have a representative from every school at our meeting present like either a document or a slideshow or a little video presentation about their school.
I think again, if you want to see like the space and the wasted space, it is probably the best to do the site tour during the day, like when we're actually teaching, because you're really gonna get the true impact. The mess is whoever had that point, that was a great point. Yes, that was a great point. The mess. You need to see what controlled chaos looks like, and that's probably the best way to get an idea of if we're having wasted space or not. And I think the tours would be a great way to do it, and so that way we can focus more here. And then once you go on your tour, you can be like, hey, well, I visited this, and this is what I noticed.
So can we make that assignment and break it up? 4 of us are gonna visit this one, and the 4, divide it by 7 schools amongst us and come back and do that, or?
I think most teachers are, I mean, I don't know, I guess I'm speaking for myself. I've been in all the buildings, so I'm pretty good with, I don't really need to go visit all the schools, but I'm sure community members that haven't seen, and especially seeing it during the day when it's in motion, you know,
I was just
would be a
wondering.
good idea.
Sorry, I was just wondering if we're still having the meeting there. We could always tour the school before. We're still going to have our meeting, regardless if we have it here or at a school. Or am I missing something?
Well,
What am I missing,
I
Pete?
I didn't want to talk over you. Who was talking? Go ahead. I think the idea is just if you want to look at it, it's best to see it in motion, and then if there's more, you know, I guess questions on it, we can dive into it there. But is there a conflict with timing? Is that kind of the more of the issue? To be able to see it like when it's running. Yeah.
Sorry. That's why I don't need mics. The problem would be that you're wasting the 7 days to tour all the schools. And even if you're meeting at the schools, you're still taking a half hour, 20 minutes, 15 minutes just to tour it. And then you're still going to try to have your hour-and-a-half meeting. So doing it on our own time in between whatever time what we have available and viewing it and seeing it throughout the transition and the commotion of all the students, because each school is transitioning differently. Each school adapted a 6th grade class students. So how each school does that is totally different because of the space that they already have and how they use the space that they currently have at each school.
I got an idea that might satisfy
Excuse
both
me.
parties. Oh.
Did she withdraw her motion, yes or no?
Yes, she did. Yes, she did.
Then I think it's mute, according to Robert's rules.
Okay.
We're talking and wasting an important time.
Okay, okay. I
I
think
don't want to be rude,
No, no, no
Mr.
problem.
Chairman.
No worries. We're all tired here. I've been up since 4. I taught all day, and
I'm
and
sorry.
yes, this too. And so I got an idea, but the idea here is that we're coming up with an idea of how to tackle this monster, right? So not every idea was bad. I don't, wasted time's only is in the eye of the beholder. But I got an idea. How about this? If you want to see it during the day, feel free to do it during the day. If someone's willing over here, how about after our meetings, if you would like to have a tour of a specific school, maybe we could have arrange something that after the meeting, hey, you can go walk through and check out the school. Would that be something? No, but even if you want to check it tonight, I don't know. I mean, no. Okay. That was an idea I had. That way, if you want to see it during the day, if you want to see it at night, maybe do that so we're not having teachers go. We teachers know the needs already, so it's kind of hard to pitch it. So I guess it's me. I'm confused at where we're at this point.
Amy, how do they determine, you mentioned auto shop, how do they determine how many students would take that class? Who puts a request, or carpenter shop, or?
So we, in January and February, that kind of starts our registration cycle for the next year. So we educate our kids on potential classes through assemblies, classroom visits, counselors, parent nights, all of that. So we get that word out as much as we can. Then we facilitate a massive, they're called requests. So the kids go into Skyward, into their computer family access, and they put in the schedule that they hope to have the next year. So I want these 14 classes all year long. These are the ones. And that's going to be a combo of what's required, right, for sophomores or juniors, state requirements, as well as their interests. So then we look at those numbers, and that's what determines viable courses or not. So we see total trends and patterns in that. But what we do before any of that even starts, like in my work, is we talk to kids. We poll the students. Our career showcase is coming up in a couple of weeks, where we have Othello businesses all through our school, the gym, set up and talk to kids about careers. And I have a way that I get the data from them on where their interest lies. So that's how we create kind of what to put in front of them.
So, how would we determine the build-in auto shop? Because the need and the desire by the kids?
Yeah, so for example, this year, after our career showcase last year, and again, this was a new position in the district, so we had never done it like this before. We knew what kids wanted. My teachers are, they have good relationships with kids, and the kids will say, oh, I wish we had a diesel mechanics class. Me and Tony and my friends would take it. So then we try to get some real data around that. After the showcase last year, all of these things popped up that we had never even thought about. So then we found frameworks, curriculum to try to offer these courses that were, based on student need. Then you put it out there, and if there truly is a bunch of kids who wanted those classes, bam, then we'll offer it.
Amy, is there a cap size in high school, like of how many kids can be in a certain?
Yes. So a minimum course. So sometimes we go out on a limb, and maybe if 15 to 20 kids sign up, we have to make that decision. Because if a course has only got 15 kids in it, then there's 35 somewhere else, right? Everybody has to take their part and have their seats full and all of that. So it's a giant formula. But on the top end, we try to not have more than 30 kids, like in an ELA class. That's just huge for any course. But based on facilities sometimes, computers and business, 25, 28, I would say is much more of an average. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a motion? I move that I made a Google document down here where people can sign up, so I move that after the meeting, people can come and sign up for tours, and we can then facilitate days and times, and if I can get their name, their number, and what school they're wanting to do, we can, just in the interest of time and helping people get the information that they need to do that. So that's my motion.
Any more discussion on this subject? All those in favor? All right. All opposed? The ayes have it. All right. Thank you, David, for making that real quick. So any last questions? Any information that you would like me to bring to this next meeting before we adjourn? Any information? Yes.
I don't have a mic, but is that okay? Should I get a mic?
This is becoming fun.
They're faster down there.
No.
Sorry. So something that has been on my mind, I don't know. It went off on me too. The lights? Hello? The light's on. There we go. Okay. Kind of really curious in, and I don't know if it matters so much or not, and maybe somebody can tell me. What is included in the building we are trying to design? You know, what costs do we have to include in it? Sprinklers, you know, cabinetry, exits, doors, locks for the doors, special mechanisms to unlock the doors. I mean, is that building, because at my tour, a lot of the teachers, we don't have cabinets, we don't have cupboards, we don't have whatever. That comes with the building. They all assume it comes with the building because otherwise it comes out of their teacher budget to put it in. I'm curious as to what numbers go where, I guess, a little bit. I mean, carpets.
So to answer
kind
that
of-
question, I'd like to make a recommendation to bring in 3 experts that we work with from the district. They're out of ESD 112. ESD is just our educational support district. One individual, his name is Dax Logston. He's an expert in state match and construction management. So he'll certainly be able to answer all of the questions and the questions you just posed as well. Another person is Jim McNeil, who is our bond counsel. Not necessarily saying that we're moving in that direction, but certainly it provides us the opportunity to ask some serious questions to that individual. And then Mark Pressing. Mark Pressing is our financial advisor, so he'll be able to give us clarity also. So I recommend that we bring those individuals or those 3 individuals to our next meeting to answer those questions.
Perfect. Okay, so I wrote the names. That one, the first one was already on my list. So, yeah, if we can get a couple more experts, that'd be great.
They could also answer questions around state matching funds available as well.
Mr. Chairman? Yes. Hey, the previous facilities committee, I believe they came up with a 30-year plan. Could we get somebody from that previous committee to come in and speak to us about what they came up with? And
Do you know anybody on it? That'd be
I think you could probably call Mr. Brad Borsman. He 546-7435.
546 what?
7435.
7435. Would you guys like to hear from another person who's on it? Okay. So 546 7435.
Yep.
Okay. Good. That's a good idea though.
Mr. Chairman, I was wondering if you could put on the agenda, number 2, prioritize this plan from the most immediate needs of the future needs of our school district. So we need to have maybe each representative tell something about their school. I know one elementary school, when you're walking through it, K through 6, they're running into each other. There's no room in the hallway. And so I think these are immediate needs, and you need a place for them to all be able to go for an assembly. So I think we need to work on, maybe you can work on prioritizing how we're going to figure out these needs, because that's on our list, number 2.
I have an idea. What if we had something on the lines, we already have something that basically an elementary, like each school, like what their main needs are for space? We have something already in place for that?
Not wants, needs.
No, sorry, needs. That's the important word. Thank
Just
you.
even at just K6 right now, what the needs are to make these compatible, I mean, make it work.
So I can make a recommendation. I've worked with the principals. We do have teachers that are represented here from each school site. So My thought is to utilize the principals and maybe collaborate with them, and then utilize the teachers that's already existing from those schools that's on this committee to bring that information back. So if you would, let me work with the principals on that.
Prioritize our needs.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
And I apologize. I don't have all the time to look it up. So I want to try to do it. I think that's kind of like a here's our shotgun blast of a few things that this is our
We
immediate
have to
needs.
have these
Immediate needs.
immediate needs right now to continue. We
The
can't
red
see-
zone.
We can't see the
So
big
basically red
picture
zone
till we
needs.
continue and take our
Freeze.
needs that we need right now.
Okay. That's a good idea. Thank you.
Can I just ask something? I'm a
Yeah.
little confused as we hop around things. I guess one thing I'd really like to know is a budget. Another thing, as some are talking about building and what do we need in a building, are we talking about just updating or those immediate needs in each facility as we go forward, trying to make it K through 8? And are we talking about, can we make this fit within a budget for just updating those buildings? Are we talking about a combination of building a new building plus updating those buildings? Is that what our budget is, or what exactly are we trying to figure out?
So I guess as a facility committee, we're going to develop a plan, and if that plan involves building a new school, or if that plan involves adding on, and I guess that's kind of how we got to get our information to figure out, are we adding on, are we building the new, are we?
Because I think we need to know those red zone needs for this year, next year, but then are we continuing to make it K through 8? And if so, what do we need for that? Because that's a whole new set of things than just right now. If we view Wahidas right now, it'll be totally different than what K through 8 might look like.
And I think Dax Loxton can provide some clarity for us at our next meeting on that question.
Okay, great.
On that one, okay. Would it be plausible to have, sit down with the principals and get kind of a red ticket list of items?
Yes, I'm going to be working with the
Okay.
principals, and I'll collaborate with them, and then I'll work with the teachers that's sitting around here.
Yeah, you
to
got
bring
all
it
that.
back.
All right. So Dr. Hurst will be getting a hold of every teacher that's there. I guess you already know what teacher for DOHS. So we'll try to work for that. Any other ideas? And guys, this is exactly how I want it to work. Please just do this. I'm willing to try to get it all. This was our first meeting, and no one asked anything. If you don't ask, I can't help you. I like the red list. I like that idea. Anything else that you guys would like to have some information on that I can try to bring? I tried to do my best with bringing what I could with who was available today for what we could get. Is there anything else? You guys want to get out of here? Yes. All right, Grace Moon's complaints adjourned.